Hello, guys and gals, lords and ladies, saints and sinners of every kind. Welcome to Rise Up Jerusalem, your Catholic podcast for teens. I'm your host, Connor McLaughlin, and this week is going to be an extra fun-packed, super deep topic. We keep doing deep topics lately. I don't know. I guess I'm feeling in like the deep mood. You know, we talk about papal infallibility, the just war theory. I mean, we're getting some deep stuff. And today we are going to talk about what some people call C.S. Lewis's trilemma, but there's actually 4 of them, so we're not going to use that name. We're instead going to call it the Legend, Liar, Lunatic, or Lord story. Now, there is a theory out there going around that Christ was not actually a person. There's another theory going around that Christ was not who he said he was. He was a liar. There's another theory going around that said that Christ was a lunatic and absolutely crazy and just totally 100% thought he was the son of the Father, but of course he wasn't, because God's not going to send down his son to die for people. Now, we're going to tackle all of these. Now, this aren't new stuff. These are extremely, extremely, extremely old ideas, but what we're going to do is we're going to take them down, knock them in the jaw. Rocky Balboa, these suckers. Anyways, let's start with this. So the first one is that Jesus was a legend. This is really quite simple. Did Jesus actually exist? A lot of people say that Jesus was just some legend that had grown about him. So the apostles were starting their church. They might have called it a cult back then, maybe. And they were basically saying, this Jesus guy came down and he did this. All right. That is totally plausible. Sure, the apostles... Totally. I believe that might not have happened. We got a couple issues with that, however. The first one is that the New Testament was written like within a generation after Christ died. So it's not like there's a massive split like in a lot of, if you read history books, millions upon millions of years, like the Mayans or the Aztecs. So it's like, oh, this is what we think it does, and then history books get written years later. No, the Bible was written, the New Testament part of the Bible, the Old Testament had been written, the Jews were using it, but the New Testament part of the Bible had been written only a generation after the birth of Christ, while, keep in mind, eyewitnesses were still up and running. So that's the first knock in the legend idea, is that the New Testament was written when eyewitnesses of Jesus are still around. So in some places in the Bible, it says, go ask them. If you don't believe me, go ask the apostles. They lived while Jesus was alive. They walked with him. They did it. And not only that, we have so many documents that prove that it was written within a generation. So we do know that the Bible, which talks about Jesus, was written very close to the time that Jesus died. So it's going to be pretty accurate as to what he did, because they could go up to Saint, I don't know, insert saint name, apostle name here, and say, hey, Saint Matthias, how was Jesus? Like, tell me about this guy. Like, tell me how he was. Was he cool? What did he do? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, they walked with Jesus. And Paul, the guy who wrote Corinthians, Ephesians, all those great books, like half of the entire New Testament, he may not have been a Christian during the time of Jesus, but he was still able to talk with people. He was able to talk with Peter. He was able to talk with John. He was able to talk with any one of them because they were still alive. Now, some people say, well, maybe the Bible is faked. Maybe it's all just hogwash. Well, then we're going to take that down very simply, because Jesus of Nazareth wasn't just talked about in the Bible. Jesus, Pontius Pilate, John the Baptist, they're all mentioned in non-biblical sources from the time period. One of the most famous of these is the Jewish historian Flavius Josephus. He wrote about Jesus of Nazareth, Pontius Pilate. He writes in his history book. Well, it wasn't a history book for him, but in the documents he kept of everyday life, he said there is a cult that has grown up around this man named Jesus, who they call the Christ, who lived in Nazareth. The Sanhedrin brought him to Pontius Pilate after he proclaimed that he was the Son of God, and Pontius Pilate handed him over back to them to be crucified. So that's pretty obviously what does happen in the New Testament. There are others, for example, Pliny the Younger, the Roman official, he has books. Tacitus and Suetonius, both Roman historians, they have it. So there are a lot of non-biblical people who say, yeah, Jesus was around back then. Now, let's say that those people were under the influence of Christ too. Let's say that they were being bamboozled by the apostles to help them further their cause. All right, This is where we get to the third part of why this idea of Jesus not being existing is completely and utterly fake in every sense of the word. Look at the apostles, all right? Every single apostle, except for one, John, who was thrown onto an island and had a massive dream that we now call the book of Revelations, was killed. Peter was crucified upside down. Andrew was crucified on an axe. James the younger got thrown off a building. James the older got his head cut off. We can go on. All of them died painfully. And think about this. All they had to do was say, nope, I'm lying. No, Jesus never happened. And they would have been free. They would have been absolutely fine. But because they didn't, it's saying that they believe it so much that they're willing to stake their lives on it. And what kind of a person do you know? Seriously, do you know anyone who, if given the chance to denote something that they knew to be false, would say, no, I still think that this thing that I obviously know to be a lie is still true? So if a man starts walking around and saying, I am a horse, and people say, we're going to shoot you unless you say that you're not a horse, and the guy knows that he's not a horse, is he going to let himself die? Or is he just going to say, just kidding, I'm not a horse. I'm not a horse. I can't be a horse. I'm a human being. I'm a horse? Nay, of course I'm not. No one's going to do that. No one. No one in their right mind would sacrifice themselves, let themselves die for something that they knew to be a lie. Now, what about this idea? That Jesus maybe is that horse-thinking person. Maybe he's just utterly insane. Now, once we start saying that Jesus is insane, we have to look at what actually constitutes an insane person. And according to WebMD, your source for self-diagnosis and convincing yourself that you have Ebola, people who are insane are aggression, emotional instability, large amounts of anger, stirring of others to violence, all things that Jesus never did. When people said, are you going to free us from the Romans? He talked about turning the other cheek. Like, that's not the kind of guy that would be insane. If someone said, hey, we're hungry, we need food, to Jesus, he wouldn't just say, here's some food, pop, imaginary food. Don't you see it? No, he actually multiplied 3 loaves and 2 fishes. He actually multiplied loaves and fishes. Like, Jesus isn't crazy. All right, so if he's not crazy and he really did exist, then maybe he's just a liar. Maybe he's just absolutely crazy. Now, this is where it gets a little bit deeper than all of the other ones. Let's say that Jesus was a liar. First off, we have the exact same idea as with the apostles. Jesus wouldn't let himself die, crucifixion, which is not very pretty death, for something that he knew himself to be a lie. He would say, no, I'm not son of God. Of course I'm not. It's like that horseman. He's not going to do it. Now, the problem with this is that a liar is not someone you want to be around. But everyone who believes in anybody who says they are a Christian, no one thinks that Jesus is a bad man. Very few people at all, unless they're very, 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 very strongly opposed to Christianity or Jesus for some reason, will say Jesus is a bad man. There are people who say, I don't believe him to be Lord, but I believe him to be a good teacher. But a liar isn't a good person. So by definition, if they're saying that he's a good teacher, that means that he's good. By them saying that he is a good person and a good teacher, that means he's good and he's not a liar. Because a good teacher wouldn't be a liar. A good human would not be a liar. So is he a legend? No, he can't be. People outside of the Bible say that he was around. Is he a crazy person? No, he exhibits no signs of being a crazy person. Is he a liar? No, of course not, because he is a good man. People believe him to be a good man. Then there's only one option left, and that is that he is Lord, that he is the Son of God like he said he was. Boom. Simple. All done. C.S. Lewis had something to say on this one time. Y'all know C.S. Lewis, right? He wrote Lions, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. He also wrote the Screwtape Letters, which is an awesome book, and if you haven't read it, you need to read it now. He wrote that you must make your choice. Either this man was and is the Son of God, or else a madman or something worse. You can shut him up for a fool, you can spit at him and kill him as a demon, or you can fall at his feet and call him Lord. That was a Mere Christianity. Good book. And for the record, Lewis wasn't Catholic. Just want to throw that out there. He's a pretty cool guy, though. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this episode of Rise Up Jerusalem. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have anything you want me to talk about, remember, tweet at me at Rise Up Jerusalem. Shoot me an email, riseupjerusalem@gmail.com. Post below in the comments and spread the word about how cool this podcast is, because you're learning stuff that you would just have to scour old books or internet forums to find. Or you can find it all right here at Rise Up Jerusalem. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. And as it was in the beginning, is now, and never shall be, rise up and live.